Hey guys, yesterday I shared my indoor plant tour and today I'm going to show you what plants I have out on my patio, so come join me. Hey all, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the 21 plants that I have inside of my house, and today I want to share with you guys the 21 that are outside on the patio space of our house. Now, most of these spend part of the year inside of the house, so they're still technically house plants, but during the warmer months I like to get these guys outside so that they can enjoy being outdoors and my husband can maybe have a little time to forget just how many plants I have because they're not all inside of the house right in front of his face all of the time. So all kidding aside, let me share with you these different plants that I have, and I'll continue to share as we go through different tips and tricks that I use to take a very simple approach to how I keep all of these guys alive. So come join me, let's get started with the first plants. And quick announcement, we have a monthly newsletter. It goes out on the 1st every month and it is packed full of all the links to all the things because there's a lot of things our family does, ministry, podcasts, videos, curriculum, all of the different things. Sign up for this and you will get one email per month with all of the links all put right there together for you. So links down below, type in your info, we will get you that newsletter each and every month. All right, back to the video, I'm out of here. Now plant number one is a little too big to hold up, but it is one of my favorites, so I'm gonna still share it with you guys. It doesn't look very pretty right now. This is my Clematis, and it blooms in the spring each year. Now this plant I leave outside in this pot all year round. We live in the southeast, we're in western North Carolina, and even throughout the winter, even snow and ice and everything that we get, I've left this guy outside for years and he continues to do just fine. Now these were clearance plants that I picked up from Walmart a few years back, put into this pot and put it out here, and I just let it continue to grow and climb up on our fence as we go. We have a little fenced-in area up here by the house on our property for the dogs and the kids to be able to come out and play in, and so most of my plants are kept here inside this little fenced area because we also have chickens and chickens like to eat plants. So I keep these guys up here where they are safe. We have the Clematis over here that grows and produces the most beautiful blooms every year, coming back bigger and better with even more blooms. I love my Clematis. I was a wedding florist by trade, and so purchasing Clematis vines is something that even at a wholesale cost is very, very expensive. And so being able to grow my own Clematis is something that I absolutely love. They're beautiful blooms, and again, it's a very hands-free. It's out there in a container. If we haven't had rain for a little while, I'll give it some water here and there, but otherwise it does its own thing. It comes back every year. It's beautiful. I love it. The next thing is going to be my Vinca Vine. Now I picked these up at Lowe's a few years ago, put them in a planter, and I love these things. My chickens never messed with them even when they were in the area where the chickens were, and these Vinca Vines are another one that they stay in their pots out all year long. I do absolutely nothing to these guys except for maybe give them a drink of water if we've gone a while without rain. But otherwise, these vines grow back every year, bigger and better. They grow so long. I end up putting them up against our little, we have like just cattle fencing up here that kind of makes this space, and I just put these up next to that and let them use the fencing to even grow up on throughout the year because these Vinca vines get so long. They're so pretty, they're very resilient, they produce little blooms even. I believe later in the summer I get a couple little blooms that pop up, but they're great little plants. If you're in your Lowe's or Home Depot and you see Vinca vines, they're pretty inexpensive, great to throw in places where you want something to just kind of trail out all over the place. I love them spilling out of containers. The Vinca vines are beautiful. Next would be my elephant ears. I love elephant ears. We're from the desert of Southern California, so moving back east was huge for us, and there's so many beautiful plants, and seeing these huge elephant ears in front of people's homes, we just always fell in love with them. It's my husband's favorite plant next to the bird of paradise. And so having elephant ears was very exciting. I've planted a couple before. The first time I did it, the bulbs did not make it through the winter. They did not last, they did not come back, but this elephant ear has actually come back for the past few years. And so again, every year it comes back a little bit fuller, a little bit bigger. I love seeing our elephant ears pop up. We have it here by the front of our gate where we walk in, and I don't know, there's something that you feel like you're at Jurassic Park or something like that as you see these elephant ears grow throughout the summer. Before we know it, they'll be bigger than the fence, and they are really just a fun plant. Love, love, love our elephant ears. Next on the tour would be my pot of mint. Now this was one of those grocery store mint plants over in the herbs section that you get, and you can like grow your own herbs. I picked up a mint plant maybe 5 or so years ago. Once it got continuously too big for the containers I had it in inside of our house, I threw it out in this planter here in our yard. It's one of these big pots that I had bought for a wedding we were doing. I think I got them at Big Lots, these big black planter pots, and it has taken over the entire pot. Every year it fills the entire pot. It gets a little bit bigger. I love mint. The kids will go by and pick leaves off and just chew on them. I love that you walk by and you just barely brush it and everything smells so good. We have it right here by our gate coming into the yard and then into the house, and really love our mint plant. They're so easy to grow, very easy. You can use the leaves for tea. We leave it out all year long. So I leave this out all throughout the winter and everything, and it does just fine and comes back every year, again, bigger and better. My chickens have pretty much left it alone. Sometimes if they get desperate going into winter, you might see them picking at stuff. Not desperate because they're starving, but desperate because they love to get into stuff, I think is what they just live for. So they'll pick at it every once in a while going into winter, but really everything's kind of getting ready to go dormant. It's not that big of a deal. So love my pot of mint. Next would be my Kimberly Queen Fern. Now this fern goes back about 6, maybe even 7 years. This was one of the first plants I bought to keep here when we moved into this house. It was another one that I bought for a wedding I was doing, and I have cut this thing down to nothing so many times because I needed fern, and so it was just easier to buy a whole plant and I could pick at it. It was a clearance plant that I purchased. I've cut it down to nothing. It comes back every year. Now, ferns can be much more temperamental. They cannot handle the cold like many other plants. And so this one definitely comes in every year. When we start getting some really cold nights, we're kind of dipping low, we're getting close to those frost warnings, this fern gets drug in the house where she lives throughout the winter. And then once we start to get free from any warnings or, impending frosts in the spring, she comes back outside and just flourishes. So they will look a little sad when you bring them in for the winter, and really you probably won't see much new growth, but they have a season of dormancy when you bring them in. But once I bring her out, it takes a little bit, and next thing I know, I get new shoots coming up everywhere, and by the end of summer, this fern gets so full and just bushy and beautiful. I love my fern. And so they're another one that I think as long as you find a happy medium, they get lots of good sunlight, but not something so much that it's scorching the leaves, keeping up with water. That's another one where if we haven't had rain for a little while, I'll go ahead and give her a good drink and just run the hose through until I see water coming out the bottom. She's got great drainage, and I'll add some of the little plant spikes specifically made for ferns a few times a year. Honestly, it's whenever I remember. I'm not super strict with any of this stuff, but as much as I remember, I'll throw some spikes in there, give a little extra food. Like I shared in my indoor plant video, making the worm casing tea is something that honestly I have found is the best. And as much as I can do that, I try to do that where I get a bag of worm casings, kind of soak some of that in water, kind of stir it up, and then water the plants with that, so that way they get those great nutrients. After my beautiful queen fern, I also have a beautiful lavender plant. Now this is in with one of my Vinca Vine pots. I did have another one. One thrived, one died. I don't know. They were both in the same type of pot with the same type of plants in the same area, but for one reason, one of my lavender plants did well, the other one did not. Now, my problem is my Vinca Vine grows so full that my lavender really does need to get taken out of this pot and put in somewhere else. If you'll notice my lavender, it's much more wispy and kind of thinner. It doesn't, it's not getting all that it needs. So that's kind of on my list of things that need to get repotted. I need to go ahead and pull my lavender out, let it have a pot of its own, now that my Vinca Vine has gotten so big that it's honestly taken everything over. So I do have a lavender. I've had lavender before. They're pretty easy to take care of. Great plants, again, having that where you can go, you just rub your hands on it and you get that smell. It's so beautiful. You can take the flowers and dry them and use them. Lavender's an easy one. It's pretty drought resistant. It doesn't need a ton of water, needs soil that drains really well. And as long as you give it that, it's a pretty happy camper. So next would be my white bird of paradise. Now, this plant I've had for the past few years. Right now it looks really sad because when we moved most of these plants out in the spring, honestly, we had some funky weather. And so we had this long period where it was beautiful and perfect for them. And then all of a sudden a few cold snaps popped in. Well, I was kind of driving my husband and son nuts with how often I was making them move all of the plants. So eventually I said, you know what, it's fine. If they die back a little bit, it's okay. I'm not worried about it. It's not worth the hassle of bringing them in and out. So a handful of the plants I'm going to show you are definitely in this process where it is the beginning of summer. They're working on rebuilding themselves and they're not totally there yet. Like my white bird of paradise. This guy looks pretty sad. And I usually end up kind of cutting him down. Sometimes I'll keep him in the house during the winter because they get huge. It gets really, really big. These plants grow great. I haven't had any bloom yet, but I don't know if that's just the area that we live in. Birds of paradise are my husband's favorite flower. And we miss, like, back home going to San Diego and having these beautiful, just big, huge bushes of birds of paradise. So ours haven't gotten quite like that yet. I'm not sure if it will, especially considering where we live, but they still put out these big, beautiful leaves. Just know with birds of paradise that their leaves are very easily torn. So if you have one and you're concerned because you keep getting tearing or fraying in the foliage, it's totally normal. They're very delicate. It doesn't take much for those leaves to start to tear. So yes, they put out these big, huge, beautiful leaves, but you're probably gonna end up with tears. Okay, that's kind of just what they do. But this guy's doing great. Before I know it, he's going to be a big, huge, full plant again, and they grow really, really well. So I love my white bird of paradise. Now, all of these, including the bird of paradise, we're getting back to the plants that really can be indoor house plants just specifically all by themselves, but I've got mine just pulled out on the patio. So bird of paradise can totally be inside, just put it in a window with lots of natural light. Next would be my shamrock. My mom picked up some green and red shamrocks a few years back, and she has them up on her patio, and I just love seeing how big they get every year. Hers are just huge and beautiful, and I love them. And so during St. Patrick's Day in our local grocery store that has the best plants ever, they always have shamrocks for super cheap. And so this year I went ahead and got one, and already it is doubled in size. I love these little blooms that it puts off. Every night you'll see the leaves. They look almost sad and dead, but then as soon as the sun comes out, they pop right back open. Shamrocks love being kept moist, but you want to still make sure that you've got great drainage. These are pots that I got from Dollar Tree, but they've got a great spot here to allow for proper drainage. I love this guy. As long as I keep him good and damp, he seems to be doing well and just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. You can absolutely see that he was sitting this way with the sun over here, right? It will absolutely follow the sun. So I just give him a little twist, usually every couple days, to make sure that we have some uniform growth. But love the shamrock. I am so glad I got one this year. Next year, I definitely hope to be able to get a few more because these are such pretty little plants. So next up on the list is going to be my Dieffenbachias. Now these you're probably used to seeing in grocery stores. If mine had not gotten a little too cold, you could see what they look like. Part of that, things getting too cold, my Dieffenbachia were not happy whatsoever, and they're not doing so well. So I've left them out. Again, I am very patient. I will sit here with a pot of dirt for the longest time because I know that pretty soon a little growth is gonna come out. This is what God designed these to do. Excuse the weird noises happening outside, and they're going to do it. So right here, I've got a little guy coming back. This one has a lot more growth popping up off of it. You can see the original stems where the foliage was, but then I have lots of great foliage coming out of this. So I'm sure in no time these will be nice full Dieffenbachia plants again. Right now they look a little sad, but I have absolute hope in them. They're doing a great job. So my next guy here I feel a little sad for, because this plant is the coolest plant in the whole wide world. I'll try to add a picture or something, but you guys can go Google it. They're fantastic. He was so beautiful. He was doing so great. He was my most sensitive. The first day that we even had the slightest bit of cold, he was not happy at all. The leaves, they showed me real quick, and I said, oh goodness. So he died off really fast, having some cold. And I've been kind of just watching and watering and hoping that I would see a sign of life. And guys, I have one. I've got, this was the original stem, and I've got this growing up out of here, and it has been growing so fast. And this is my African mask plant. This plant is so cool. It is so neat. I cannot wait for it to get nice and full and produce those beautiful, just striking leaves that it does. The foliage on this plant is one of those that people stop and notice. It is a cool looking plant, but as long as I kept it in good sun and it didn't have to stay, you know, too terribly wet or anything, it was growing great and doing wonderful. So lesson learned, African mask plants do not like cold whatsoever, but they're really cool, and if you have patience, it'll do its thing. Next would be my Cryptanthus. I love this little plant. It was one I picked up, I think at Walmart on clearance, because it just looks so neat. Again, we're from the desert of Southern California, so just like with my moonshine that I had, that coloring that kind of reminds me of like agave, and I don't know, I just like that look of it. This guy definitely had that kind of deserty look to him and reminded me of home. I had one kind of a longer flower that had budded on top of him and was growing, and the kids accidentally knocked it off one time. It got bumped, and so I just shoved it down into the soil, and it's growing. And then I have many more blooms kind of coming up on here. I know they're kind of hard to see, but this guy is continuing to grow. It's not the fastest grower, but I love these. You've got the red in here and the green, a little bit of yellow. Again, not a super fast grower, but definitely kind of along those lines of a look of like a succulent, but a lot easier to take care of. He doesn't require much water or attention, honestly, at all. Put him somewhere where there's light, where you see some new leaves coming out, and this guy is a pretty fun little plant. So this guy is actually one of my favorites, and that would be my spider plant. I had wanted a spider plant for forever. It was one I remember my mom and dad always having when I was a kid, and I just hadn't picked one up. They're really easy to grow. They're one of those that are great for beginners. They do great in nearly every circumstance. I got this guy and I had him inside, and last summer I went ahead and brought him out, and I honestly kind of accidentally left him outside, but I noticed how quickly he was really happy being outdoors. The other thing is the spider plants are known for these great, you know, spider extensions they put out, but when mine was indoors, I never had these. And come to find out, I never had these because our cat was continuously eating them. And so, didn't hurt the cat, but it kept taking them off of my plant, which was driving me crazy. So I love to move this guy outside as soon as it starts to get warm, and he is just growing like crazy. I've got so many great extensions coming off here. I'm actually getting ready to go ahead and break him up. Look at, they're coming out of the top, they're coming out of every direction. I'm getting ready to break him up and kind of propagate him out so I can get some additional spider plants going. Love having these outside. Again, for me, if I put this inside, my cat is going to eat all of my beautiful pieces off of it. So it has to be something that I put up high or have hanging or something like that. But I absolutely love my spider plant. And this is one that loves being outside, loves sunshine. I've noticed mine loves the humidity out here. It's not one that I, you know, have to water a ton or do a ton of work to keep going, and he always just seems to be a happy camper. Next up is my sad little ivy plant. So I'm sure many of you have been in the store. This is one of the basics that you see in every store, and you always see these beautiful, full, lush ivy plants. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but every time I buy an ivy plant and bring it home, it goes from huge and beautiful and lush and gorgeous to a sad little twig so quickly. Ivy hates me. I don't know what it is, but I can never do well with ivy. I've noticed that it doesn't like to be watered a ton. It really doesn't like a lot of being bothered in general. up is what I have found. And so ivy has worked best for me. When I get ivy, I put it in a planter somewhere outside and I leave it alone. That's usually been the only time I've been able to keep ivy alive. So this ivy was one that I ended up picking up because I just wanted to give ivy another try. I picked up over the winter. It hated it inside of the house. It was literally just a little twig when I brought it out here. And now that it's been out here, I've got new growth. I've got these filling back up. So it's like as soon as I brought it outside, it was happy and liking it. And so out here is where it will continue to live. I'm sure it'll end up getting repotted at some point in time. Hopefully it'll get big enough that it will need that, but my ivy is gonna stay outside because I don't know what it is. Ivy doesn't like me, it doesn't like my house, it doesn't like something no matter what I do. So if you've gotten an ivy before because you thought it would be an easy plant and then it just totally dies on you, it does that for me too. I don't know what it is, but ivy just, I don't know. I think it's kind of difficult. It's not my favorite. Okay, so this guy's one of my favorites too, and that would be my Begonia Rex. So this begonia was one I got, and it always stayed really small. I've always had it in this pot. It was always a smaller plant. It never really got very big for me. And then one year, it was the same year with my spider plant, where I'd brought them outside to water them, and I don't remember, something happened, and I ended up leaving a couple plants outside. And a few days later, when I was like, oh gosh, I still haven't brought those in, I noticed how much new growth this one had. So my Begonia Rex and my spider plant come out as soon as it gets warm each year. And the moment they come outside, they just start exploding. Like this is one leaf. Do you see that? Look how big this is. I love all of the color. I love the variation. I just think these are the coolest little plants. It almost looks like it has little hairs growing off of it. My Begonia Rex is a really fun one. These are almost like a thick, kind of rubbery feeling leaf. They're really neat. And so this guy likes to be watered. He likes to be outside. He likes to have lots of sunshine and really just grows and grows and grows. The colors get so vivid. This has been a really, really fun plant. The next plant in my usually an indoor house plant, but currently an outdoor patio plant because it's summertime, would be my bird nest fern. So this one's kind of fun. These are in the fern family, but you have these really different leaves. I don't know, I like different textures, I like different looks, and this bird nest one is really neat. If you can see these really cool leaves that come out of it. This is I don't know, it's a really easy plant to grow. Inside I had it and it was happy, like it did great indoors, but it was one that I said, well, let's take you outside and see how you grow. This is originally from the South Pacific, so I figured being outdoors, sunshine, humidity would definitely be things that this guy would like. And I have seen a lot of new growth since he's been outside. So not crazy fast as far as growth, but still quite a bit. I have lots of little new leaves kind of popping up down here. So I know that he's happy, he's growing. Again, trying to move him around and rotate him from time to time to make sure we get even growth, but this bird nest fern has been a really fun plant. I've probably said really fun plant like a million times, haven't I? You know what I love, okay? This is what I love. This is what I get excited about. I can do plant things all day long. So yes, I do think my plants are fun. That is absolutely the honest truth, okay? Next fun plant would be this really cute little Winterberry. This was in our local grocery store in about December or so, and it was so full and lush and it had these beautiful little red berries on it. This thing was so cool. I got really sad because I think I put it outside too early and it died down to just pure twigs. That was all it had. And I was so bummed because it was this beautiful little plant and I loved it so much, but I didn't want to give up on it. So I've left it outside, I've kept it watered. Yes, I keep watering the pot of dirt until eventually I have these beautiful green blooms all coming back again. I've got all this great foliage coming out every day. When I check on this, I see a little more foliage popping out, and I'm hoping that this winter it'll be full of these beautiful red berries all over again and continue to grow. These Winterberries are really, really neat. It does say that once you kind of let it get established, it can be something that can be transplanted and just moved to outdoors. But I don't know. Right now, I'm just going to keep on holding on here, praying that it continues to get healthier and stronger and bigger, and this winter we'll get some great berries again. So definitely a fun little plant, this Winterberry one is. All right, so I've got a long story with this one. This is my blue star fern that I had seen hanging in our Walmart plant garden center forever, and I loved this plant so much. Every time I'd walk by, I thought these leaves, it's very similar to like the bird nest fern, but it's got these very neat kind of different looking leaves to it. It almost kind of looks like paper, but it's got this kind of velvety feel to it. And so one day I was in there with my husband and I told him just how much I had been in love with this plant, and so he bought it for me. But I noticed really quickly after getting it home, it was very full in the pot that it was in, so I did move it to a bigger pot. But then I noticed that I really was having a hard time making him happy, trying to find a spot that he was happy in and not just, you know, losing leaves, but actually getting some new growth. I really struggled to find a spot. And so trying to find a way to keep this one happy has been a bit more work. Now, I've let this get down to nothing, but I refuse to give up on my pot of dirt because I know there is a blue star fern in here. And so since I moved him outside this year, I've actually seen all of this growth. When I moved it out here, there was just like 1 or 2 little sprouts, that was it. And since being out here, I'm actually getting quite a bit of new growth. I've even got some new little ones kind of poking in back here. We're finally getting some new growth though. I'm finally seeing some improvement. I'm not sure if it's one specific thing I've done or kind of a combination thereof, but my blue star fern is slowly but surely coming back to life, which I am just so excited about because I really, really, really love this plant. I love the different texture. I love the color. And when this is big and full, I'm telling you, you guys, it is so, so pretty. All right, another big one here is my Kangaroo Paw. This one is very similar to the blue star fern. It's just more of a deeper green. It's also similar to the bird nest fern, kind of all in that family again. This one I had in a smaller pot in the house, and it was just growing like crazy. I could tell it needed more room. And so I put it in this big, huge pot that I have here, and it has just been going nuts. I've got aerial roots back here that are going and they're just sinking themselves down into the soil, putting out more and more fern shoots every day. This guy's been so happy. I have him right here on the step to our house, and so far so good. He gets a good amount of sun. Usually every week I will come out here, and these plants are on this plant stand, which I will link down below. My husband got it for me. It was a birthday gift, so I had more places to put my plants. I love this stand. It was easy to pull outside. All of the plants that are my house plants that are out here on the patio, they just set on the stand, and they get some of the water that comes when it rains depending on how, you know, how the rain falls, but they are under the eave here. And so I'll go ahead, usually once a week I come out here and we'll just give them all a good drink of water. Since they are outside, I water them a little bit more than I do my plants inside. Inside I only water about every 2 weeks. The outside ones I do every week. But again, if we've had a really hot week or something's happened, you know, and I happen to be walking out and seeing that my plants are not looking very happy, I'll go ahead and give them a drink of water. Sometimes the kids will take their little pool that I just dumped out and they'll fill it up with water and come over and water the plants for me because they're helping. But luckily, since they're outside, that water does evaporate very quickly. Every plant that's out here does have a great way so it can still drain very well, and they seem to do just fine with that mixture of water. And so while I don't have a strict watering schedule, they get great sun. We have part of the day where they are in direct sunlight, but other parts of the day where we do have a lot of mature trees around here, so they do get plenty of shade so they're not just baking all day long. If you bring your house plants out and you just put them into direct sunlight after being indoors, you're going to most likely just fry all of your plants. Even the easiest plants are going to get fried if you put them out into direct sunlight. So having them out here where they are protected by the eave of the house, there are mature trees around, so yes, they get plenty of sunlight. They get more sunlight than they do inside of the house, but they're not just baking in it all day long, is a big key factor to keep your plants happy even once they've been moved out to the patio. All right, holding my kangaroo paw was heavy enough. I'm not gonna try to pick up my next one, but that would be my olive tree. I have wanted an olive tree for forever. I would love to have olive trees. I would love to have big, mature olive trees around our property. I'm not sure how well they would do. I've kind of seen some mixed reviews of how they do in our area, plus they're pretty expensive. But when I was in our local grocery store and I saw these smaller olive trees for sale, my husband said, yes, we absolutely are getting one of these. And so I've had this one here. They actually are quite cold hardy. So I keep it here on the step of our door and really kept it outside all winter long. There were only only a couple times when we were getting ready to have really heavy snow or real extreme cold that I did go ahead and just bring it in and set it inside by the front door, but I was amazed at how cold hardy these plants are. Now they will drop their leaves during winter. Mine held on to a handful, but it dropped quite a few. But that's okay. It doesn't mean that your plant is dying. It means that it is dropping its leaves for winter and they will grow back come springtime. I have so much new growth on this olive tree. It has been so happy, and I really have seen a lot of growth since we purchased it last summer. So love having this olive tree. It hasn't actually produced anything yet, but that's totally normal. With any type of fruit tree or nut tree, something like that that you get, you don't get production right away. So if you've bought something and you're kind of getting like frustrated, what did you do? You're not seeing anything come off of it. Totally normal, totally okay. That's how it should be. Hopefully one day this will be a nice big olive tree that we can transplant into the yard. But until then, I love having this here. For us, I think olives are just so neat. We think of so many biblical connections there. And so having that is just a neat little thing that we love having here by our front door. Next is going to be my tea rose bush. Now these are these cheap little tea roses that you guys can get at Walmart, Tractor Supply, anywhere. They come in kind of that plastic tube with the little branches sticking out. I bought that one and it had a match over on the other side, but my brother ran it over with the lawnmower. So I just have this one, but he sits there. He doesn't look the prettiest right now because it was just full of beautiful yellow blooms, and now it is in its process of shedding all the old with some new buds coming up. But this thing goes crazy. I do absolutely nothing to it. I just put it in the ground and give it some water if we've gone a long time in between rain, and this thing grows like crazy. It really could use a good pruning. It could use some love. I understand that. But I've just let it do its thing, and it grows wild and free and produces so many blooms. The kids love coming out here and picking the flowers. Later in the fall, they come out and pick the rose hips that are on it. We love this bush. It is so beautiful. I would love to plant more. When I was a kid, I grew up, my aunt had these beautiful tea rose bushes that grew by the front steps of the house, and we would take pictures by them and pick them. I would soak them in water to make like perfumes when I was playing, and I love having these tea roses and seeing my kids do the same. So last but not least would be my little miniature gardenia bushes. Now these I picked up from Lowe's on clearance. I love me a good clearance rack a few years back, and I just threw them in the ground here really without thinking about it too much. So they might be a little bit happier if they had a little more sunlight. Mine are actually quite shaded most of the year, but they have done great. They've been outside in the ground since day one. They come back, or they continue to produce and actually look quite good all throughout the winter, but come back each spring fuller than the year before. I have done absolutely nothing to them. I know many people do go in and trim and shape. I've just let mine kind of do their thing. And every summer they produce the most beautiful white blooms that smell so good. Again, being a florist by trade, gardenias are so expensive and so hard to get and work with in the floral industry that having them just growing out here naturally, that I can walk over and just pick a gardenia and get to enjoy them. I see them from my kitchen window, and I really do love my gardenia plants. So that's it. That is the 21 plants that I have currently growing out on my patio, with most of them, only a handful actually stay out year round. The rest do come in as soon as it starts to get cold. So yes, that leaves like 40 some odd plants in my house during the winter months. But I love these plants. They're great. I love that so many plants can be so versatile to come outside. You might have to play a little bit with where best to place them, making sure that they're not baking in the sun all day long. Remembering that if they're in a container, you probably will need to water them a little bit more than something in the ground. So if you naturally get a lot of rain, and you have plants in the ground that are able to just kind of be fine with just the rainwater, remember that in a container they don't have that reservoir of the ground. They're just in whatever space you've allotted them, and so they're going to dry out quicker than something growing in the ground. And so whenever you have something in a container, it's going to need a little extra attention as far as making sure that it's not getting bone dry and losing all of its nutrients. So making sure that I water them, I don't have them completely baking in the sun, I still turn them periodically so they can grow evenly, and then adding things like either plant spikes to give them some extra food and nutrients, or getting some worm casings. I have some linked down below in the description. You can take Take some of that, put it in some water, kind of stir it up, let it sit in there a little bit, make a tea. You can water it with that, or you can directly add the worm casings into the soil that you're putting your plants into. But making sure, especially with outdoor plants, that they're not going to be anywhere like right under where water is going to be running off of the house and really splashing all that soil out and beating down on them. Making sure that they have good drainage, so that way if you do get rain or you do have something like that, they're not just overflowing with water or getting so soaked that you end up having root rot. You want to make sure that you have lots of drainage for that water to have somewhere to go, so that your plant can enjoy the water from the rain but not get soaked to death. So these are my patio plants. I hoped you guys enjoyed seeing all of the plants that I have in my house. My kids swear that nobody actually cares to learn about my plants, but hey, I know that's not true. I got some awesome mamas out there who do want to hear about the plants, who do want to see what we have, what's easy, how I take care of them. I'm very hands-off, very simple. Give them some water, find a place where they're happy, and then leave them be and let them do what God designed them to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will see you in tomorrow's vlog. Bye guys. Hold the phone. Did you just complete this whole video? High five. That's fantastic. I am so glad that you hung out with me throughout that whole thing. I know sometimes I can be a little chatty and whatever, but hey, if you were here hanging out, these are the things we'd be doing. It would be a fun time. So, you know, it's just like getting to be together without, you know, physically getting to be in the same place. So I'm glad you chose to come hang out with me. If you would like to hang out some more, of course, subscribe and maybe click some of the things that usually show up somewhere around my face. So wherever they are, if you want to click them, we can hang out. That would be super fun. And you know what, I'm gonna say it down in the description, there's all the links for all the things, and guess what, there's lots of ways that we can do different things together. They're all linked down there, so you gotta go look at them and click them and do all of the things. All right, thank you for hanging out. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna see you over in wherever I see you next. Bye.